Hi guys, so this is a video on counting macros. So I promised I'd do like a Q&A sort of introduction type thing to counting and tracking macronutrients, and kind of going about it in a bit of a backwards way really, because this is a Q&A. It's not really going through how to start out and whatnot, things like that, count it or calculate how much you need, getting started with tracking, whatnot. Basically, that was going to be my first video. I thought it would make sense, but I thought if I wanted to get everything in it that I was planning to, it would end up being really, really long. So long, it'd probably break YouTube. And I'd had quite a few questions recently, so I wanted to answer those first. So if you're really not too sure about counting macros and calculating macros, things like just the basics, then there's video on that coming up that I'll do in the next few days and put out. But for the time being, this is kind of people who've got a basic idea already of what they're doing and just want questions answered really. So go over to get straight into the questions and put it up on my Facebook page, facebook.com/healthy living heavy lifting, to see what people wanted answered. And we've got a few questions. So first up, we've got, hope people don't mind me saying first names, I won't say your whole names, but Agnieszka asked how to estimate the intensity of the training in order to work out the calories. She says she always have a problem with that. For example, she cycles to work 45 minutes each way, does 4 weight training sessions a week and 1 interval session. So would you count it as active or very active? So if you read my initial blog post on how to calculate your macros for cutting, for bulking and for maintaining, you'll know that I do it by activity levels. So I think depending on what you're looking at, we have sort of 3 or 4 different groups of activity. So for that, I'd say the main thing really is go with roughly what you think. Don't be stupid about it. Some people think, oh, if I put myself down as sedentary and they're actually like 5 times a week, they'll go lower calorie intake and they'll lose more weight and lose more fat. It doesn't really work like that. Likewise, you get some people who do 2 sessions on the cross trainer a week and we take the dog for a walk and think, oh, I'm super fit, really active. So be sensible about it. You might not get it exactly right, and there's no standard definition really, but the key is getting a sort of reasonable intake to start with, working out your macros based on that, and then adjusting it as you progress. So I'd say don't stress about it too much. So you're definitely at least in the active category, if not in the very active. I tend to go for very active, being more athletes, people training twice a day, so probably go for active, but again, see you get on. If you're losing more than a couple of pounds a week, sort of a few weeks on the trot, or you're finding performance is really suffering, then you probably got your calories too low. If you're finding you're not losing much weight, then you've probably got calories too high, is the simple answer to that really. Elke asked the same question actually, said she had the same question to ask. She wonders if someone's her calories are too high and she needs to train more, or vice versa. Well, for fat loss, it's basically you need to create a deficit. So it's kind of up to you. It's probably easier to cut 300, 400, 500 calories a day from your diet. Just take out a serving of grains, replace them with vegetables, cut down serving sizes. If you're usually cooking olive oil, take out a couple of tablespoons of that a day and you've automatically cut pretty much 300 calories. Or you can train more. One or two, again, see how you go and adjust it as you're going through. A couple of people commented that going by the calorie calculations I had in the blog, they actually need to up their calories. And to that, I'd say, yeah, I think a lot of people do. Generally, I think people fall into 2 camps. A lot of people say, calories don't count. Well, not as long as you're eating clean and stuff. Again, you can gain fat by eating clean. But a lot of people are on quite low calorie intakes, but they're inconsistent with it. So I've blogged about this quite a bit, about the idea of cheat meals and, sort of being really crap at weekends and stuff. That's not to say you need to live like a monk all the time. That's the idea of flexible dieting, is that you've got a lot of leeway, but you're consistent with it. And I've found people can seemingly eat fairly well Monday to Friday, and then suddenly at the weekend, have a couple of 6,000-7,000 calorie days that puts them into a huge surplus. So people think they're eating pretty well, eating low calorie, but actually they're not counting for those cheat days or binge days, as I would refer to them. So yeah, sometimes actually increasing your normal day's calories, but being more consistent with it, leads to better results. Likewise, a lot of people I think who often say they're counting calories. I'm not saying this is either of you guys asked the question at all, by the way, but a lot of people say they're counting calories, think they're eating, 1,800 a day actually, forgetting some of the small bits, and forgetting the latte they had here and there, a couple of sweets they picked out, so actually could well be eating sort of 2,300. So it looks like they need more calories, but because they're not counting accurately already, that's potential thing to consider. Next one, Jodie asked about bulking, maintenance and cutting, and how to move on from cutting without gaining it all back. That's probably a good one for another video actually, because that could be a whole new video with how to transition, so I think that's worth one for the future. So we'll definitely cover that in a bit more detail. So I'm just going to turn my light on a sec because it's looking a bit dark in the picture. There you go, that's better. So yeah, going to cover that a bit more in the future. That's a really good one to go over in more detail. My basic aim, we do it gradually. So you probably don't want to go straight from bulk to cut. Maybe go to maintenance calories for a bit, see how you're sitting there. Again, maintenance, while it is an actual number and you could determine it, really to determine it accurately, you would have to have, testing done. You'd have to have your metabolic rate tested in a lab ready. So, which just A, most people aren't going to have the access to be able to do that, and B, it's really not worthwhile. So find a theoretical maintenance, sit at that for a bit, and then see how you're looking really. Again, just take it slow. It's a marathon, not a sprint. But yeah, we'll come back to that a bit more in a future video. Fee and I think someone else, Charlotte, asked about coming up with inventive meals that taste good and don't take ages to work out. A couple of bits on this. Firstly, if you make your own meal, most calorie counting websites and apps have a facility where you can put everything in once and then save it as a meal. So that's really good. If you, as a lot of people do, might have a meal that's got loads and loads of stuff in it. That's difficult, every time. If you have it like once a week, you have to go in and put in each individual ingredient, put in the amounts, whatever. If you save it as a meal, you can just go back and put in that meal, same again. So I'll have a lot of stuff so week on week. So I've got a chili that I'll have, which has got quite a few different bits in it. It's got steak mince, it's got tin tomatoes, fresh tomatoes, mushrooms, beans, chorizo, some other stuff like that. Another one sort of veggie chili that's got about 15 different things in it. Rather than go through every time and put them in and put in the amounts or whatever, I will have created a recipe and just go and put that in. Alright, you're not going to get exactly the same amounts of everything every time, but usually it's just stuff like veggies, and potentially, if you're really deep into a cut and looking at getting your numbers absolutely on point, that matters, but most of the time it doesn't. If one sort of veggie chili you have has 200 grams of broccoli in it and 80 grams of pepper, and the next one has 190 grams of broccoli and 90 grams of pepper, it really doesn't matter. So just set up a basic recipe in your app or calculator. Go from there. Other things for recipes, there's a couple of really good Facebook groups. The best one I've found, there's one called Macro Magic, and there's another one, just the IIFYM group. There's also mine. A few guys in there are really good at posting pictures of food and putting the recipes and macros up with it. That's free fat loss with healthy living, heavy lifting on there. I think recipe books, I've got a few that I really like. First one is 150 healthy, not 150, sorry, it's not the book, but it's The Healthiest Meals on Earth by Johnny Bowden, who also wrote The 150 Healthiest Foods on Earth. So it's really good. It's not sort of paleo, it's kind of clean eating book, I'll be honest. There's a lot of sort of veggies and meats and fish. Everything is based around that. There's not too much grains in it, but there are some seriously good meals in there. I'm trying to think what I've had from it, but yeah, sort of chilies and curries and one pots and slow cooking things. So that is really good. Get on Amazon. I think it's about a tenner. Yeah, some sort of complicated ones, some really simple ones. That's a great book to have. Easy to work out macros as well. Although there are a lot of ingredients, that's where your recipe tracking will come in. Second one, guy I quite like is Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, which is his River Cottage Every Day. Idea being it's really simple. So again, just get some good recipes in there. Right, not everything's going to be particularly macro friendly because it's not designed for that. I don't think it's got calorie counts in it. No, it doesn't. But again, you can just, the ingredients are pretty easy to come by, very easy to do. And the other one, which does have calories per serving, so if you're using the exact recipe, you've got an idea of the calories, and you can do protein, carbs, and fat. Another guy I really like, Jamie Oliver. So I think this is his newest one, which is Save with Jamie. Some great meals in there. Had about 4 or 5 different ones in there in the last couple of weeks. So they'd be a few I get. But basically anything, just be inventive. That's what flexible dieting is about. It's not about chicken, rice, and broccoli every single meal. It's about doing stuff, potentially making it healthier, lower calorie if you're on a cut. If not, just go for it and cook whatever you like, really. So yeah, they're the recipe ones. What else have we got? Susan asked about guesstimating. That's a big one. I shall do another blog about that. I suppose my answer with guesstimating is how accurately you do it depends on your goals and whereabouts you're sitting and how strict you want to be. Ellie asked about easy ways of tracking veg and salad, as she tends to make big sharing portions of those. Again, that's when recipes will come in. And with veg and salad, if you're making a huge portion, I just add the macros of everything up, divide by how many servings you're going to have, and do that. Again, it's going to come down to the odd calorie here and there, so it's not going to be a massive discrepancy on there. Jane asked about if there are any shortcuts. The recipe way of doing things is a really good shortcut. The other one is, if you've got an iPhone, got MyFitnessPal, get the app and use the barcode scanner. Just really, really easy. Other one, I tend to use Livestrong for my calorie counting and macro tracking. On that, just something that happens automatically but makes it a lot easier, is when you type in a food at the top, it usually comes down with your most commonly selected foods. So really easy. Now I know that if I put in PE, it'll come up with pepper as the first one. And I just do PE, scroll down, enter, whey protein, WH, brings it up as the first thing. So that's really easy. So that's just a built-in shortcut, really. Let's have a look. Cheryl had a few questions. Foods that are better when counting and reduce hunger, therefore keeping blood sugar levels stable. Another sort of biggish topics, I'll probably cover that a bit more in future, but keeping blood sugar levels stable. It's more about what you eat as diet as a whole, because I think the whole thing of insulin and blood sugars is massively overstated. It comes down to GI, the glycemic index, basically. Yeah, if you eat a crap load of white rice on its own, it might spike your blood sugar and make you feel a bit sort of energetic started and then lethargic pretty soon after. But if you put that with some protein and some fat and some veggies, fibre, whatnot, that's going to blunt the insulin response. So my answer to that would be quite simply just have mixed meals, just don't eat nutrients on their own. When tracking, do you use a certain app? I use Livestrong's Daily Plate, but that's not particularly trendy. I don't think most people use MyFitnessPal. So yeah, MyFitnessPal tends to be the most commonly used one. That is what most of my clients use as well. What happens if you've overdone it on a day? Really good question. If you've overdone it by a bit, don't bother, just move on. If you've had a massive binge, I kind of say just move on again. It's up to you. If you find you're able to reduce calories a bit sort of the next day and not freak out about it, I might do that. So if you've gone over by 1,000 calories or you've really, really blown it, depending on your allowance, maybe drop it down by about 10 to 20% the next day. But for most people, I just move on, just kind of forget about it. As long as it's not happening regularly, you don't want to get into that cycle of binging and restriction. So I would just learn from it and move on, really. If you're training moderate or high intensity, are there certain foods that you have that are easier for weight loss? No. That's short and sweet, but no, not really. Do what works for you, really. Finally, I had a few questions from Taylor. What would be ideal foods to top up on if you're behind on your macros by the end of a day? So, for instance, if you're behind on fat but eating all your carbs and protein, what would be good foods to have? So there's a few things with this. First up, if we're trying to be really, really accurate with it, then you want to keep kind of single macro foods in the house. So if you're aiming specifically to hit an exact number of protein, carbs and fat every day, then having lean proteins like chicken breast, whey protein, sorry if you heard that was a chair, by the way, not me. Foods like chicken breast, lean protein, whey protein are ideal because they're virtually fat and carb free. For fat, stuff like nut butters do have protein in them as well, so you could always go like coconut oil, things like that. Even some cream, put some cream in coffee or something like that. And for carbs, fruit is ideal. If you want something a bit crappy, then like cereals. But my main thing is hitting calories. So as long as you're roughly towards the macros you want to hit, and you've hit your protein and fat minimums, if you've got say 200 calories left over, and you've hit protein and fat, and you've only got carbs left, rather than go right, what's got 50 grams of carbs, 0 fat, 0 protein, I know I'll eat a load of sugar. Whilst there's nothing wrong with doing that, it's not a particularly sociable thing to do. So what I do is have something that's mainly carb based. So you could have something that's got, say, 30 grams of carbs in it. So it could be 120 calories. So you know you've got another 80 calories just to do whatever you like with. So that could be something like a banana with sort of half a tablespoon of peanut butter. Banana is pretty much just carbs. Peanut butter's got some protein and fat. Half a tablespoon will give you about sort of 70 to 80 calories. Do that. So don't sweat it if you go over a bit on one macro, provided overall calorie intake is what you're aiming for. A lot of people don't track macros exactly anyway and look to hit protein and fat minimums and a minimum fibre intake, and then let all the other calories fall wherever they want to fall within that calorie limit. So that's, just be flexible. That is the name of the game of flexible dieting. Ready? And I think there's one more also from Taylor. Pasta weights, cooked or uncooked, and is there a ratio to adopt? Hopefully Taylor won't mind me saying this. Is actually a in-person client of mine, and he himself took the trouble to go and look at it, and apparently it's a 2.2 or 2.2 to 1 ratio of cooked to uncooked. So if you've cooked some pasta, if I got this right, divide the weight by 2.2 and you'll get the weight of what it would have been uncooked. With that being said, I would always try and weigh stuff raw, just because it's a lot easier to do that. So uncooked pasta, uncooked rice, if you're doing potatoes, cook them before you boiled them. Same with meat, just because obviously with a carb or a grain it will take on water and make it heavier. With a meat, usually the water sort of cooks that and makes it lighter. So keep things simple, just weigh everything raw as and when you can. If you have to have something cooked and you weigh it or you've forgotten, just guess. Again, you're not going to be out by that far. Again, if you're coming up to a competition or a photo shoot, might be more accurate. But if you're at that stage, you'll probably be making sure everything's weighed raw anyway. So yeah, I would just be flexible. Don't sweat it too much at all, really. That was pretty much it for the questions. So I think we covered a lot of different stuff, and there are 3 things that we'll look at again a bit more in future. I will do my introduction to counting, so if you've just watched all of this and thought, what the hell was he going on about, then I'll do a basic introduction. I'll throw up some links underneath for commenting on, for giving you information on calculating what you need between your goals. And that's pretty much it for today. Any more questions, just drop them below and I'll do another Q&A pretty soon. Cheers and guys, I shall see you all later on.